The one thing that wrecks men's lives. So what is the biggest destroyer of men? I've seen this one thing wreck so many men's lives, and it's just prevalent everywhere in society, and it's causing a lot of damage, including my own. This caused me to hit absolute rock bottom. This destroyed my health, mental well-being, long-term relationship, and financial situation. This is causing a lot of men to struggle. This one thing is a lack of impulse control. Then obviously more serious effects of how low impulse control can affect your life. Constantly lying, over drinking of alcohol, porn, weed, other drugs, sex, procrastination, extreme lack of self-care. A lack of impulse control is causing a scary percentage of men to spiral out of control. This causes men to feel helpless because they try to quit and then they just can't, even though they know the damage it's doing in their lives. This Aristotle quote exemplifies the battle. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies, for the hardest victory is the victory over self. Aristotle. When we can't quit, we self-attack. We try to punish ourselves and we make things worse. We spiral out of control because of this shame loop, this shame cycle. And because we punish ourselves, we feel worse. So therefore we need to cover it up with whatever it is our go-to thing, like going to eat 20 cookies at 11 o'clock at night, or binge eating pizza. Something I would do is like eat pizza until I'm completely full, just because I want to anesthetize myself. I don't want to feel whatever I'm feeling. So food was my go-to thing. And then because I overate, I said I kept saying I wouldn't do that, and then I would feel worse, and it would just be this downward spiral. So it created this loop. Everything in our life is affected. So let's get into 2 questions in this video. What causes a lack of impulse control? How do we develop strong impulse control? So the big reason that we don't have impulse control is because we're avoiding something internally. And it's normally some kind of loneliness, anger, anxiety, grief, sadness. And we simply just don't want to feel those feelings. We may not even be conscious of those feelings, but they're down there, and there's this internal state that we're avoiding. So we just avoid feeling it. We autopilot our way into new things that we don't want to do. The brain's go-to response is simply to offset this unwanted internal state. The part of you that says, I don't like this subtle feeling. How do I not feel it? I want to feel something else. Now, this could be coming from a part of you that's protecting you. You don't want to feel loneliness. You don't want to feel anger, because those feelings you felt in the past were too intense, too extreme. And this part of you that's protecting you will just simply say, I don't have the tools or resources to deal with this state, so I'm going to doom scroll, drink alcohol, drink coffee, watch porn, etc. Most of the time, we don't consciously choose these behaviors. We seem to just autopilot our way into them. Next thing you know, you've been swiping on Instagram for 2 hours, all because of this very subtle underlying feeling of boredom or loneliness. So why do we do this? What are we hiding from? So a big reason for this is complex trauma or shame. Shame or complex trauma is more likely the root cause of this. This normally comes from being neglected, abandoned, abused physically, abused sexually, extreme bullying, just being verbally told off all the time when you're younger. Especially if you're a boy and you've got excess energy, you've just been punished loads. So you internalize this state and you don't want to feel that feeling. So you avoid it. And to avoid the pain, those coping mechanisms are still in there somewhere. They're still very sharp. They're very active. And the parts of you that got hurt by these situations in the past probably got locked away. They got exiled because you don't want to feel them. So then other parts of you would come in and try and protect ever feeling that again. You never want to feel bored. You never want to feel lonely. You don't even want to feel sad. So cue the response. We need to do something about this feeling, and we autopilot our way into doom scrolling, whatever it is, our distractions, our addictions, our vices. And some obviously are more subtle than others. It's a bit of a spectrum. You may lack impulse control in one area, whereas another area you might be quite good. It all depends on the person, and it all depends on the experience. So this is a normal and natural way of dealing with this. Okay, so this is the shame cycle. It's quite a simple system we set up that we think is protecting us. We think it's helping, but it's not. So we're hard on ourselves. And the key part of this is the feeling of shame, the feeling of worthlessness or not wanting to be with ourselves, whatever it is, boredom, loneliness, sadness, anger, it's all down there, and we just don't want to be alone with it. So the key part is this red part here. We act out, we do whatever we do, we smoke weed, or we watch porn, or we drink too much coffee, or we just don't want to feel what we're feeling. And then we feel guilty, then we feel bad. And that's the loop. That's what creates the loop. And what happens is, a key part of the cycle is we say to ourselves, I can't believe I did it again. See, you always mess up. Reinforces that feeling of anger, guilt, anxiety. We're angry at ourselves, we have guilt, we feel anxiety, we feel sad, and then you don't want to feel that feeling, so the cycle starts all over again. It's still a very sharp system, except it's not serving you anymore. Another big reason for our lack of impulse control: we were never taught as a child. In order for us to have impulse control as an adult, we need to have been taught it to us as a child. So like I said, these emotions, when we don't want to feel them when we're a child, we exile them, we lock them away in these dungeons in our psyche. And you may have heard of something called the shadow by Carl Jung, and this is exactly what that is. It's the part of us that we've disowned, that we cannot face. And then we have these emotions that are stuck down there that we avoid feeling. So we cue the distractions, or firefighters as they're known in IFS, the ways that we deal with the not wanting to feel these emotions. And then we have these very powerful emotions that are locked away. We don't know how to handle them. We don't know how to internally regulate these emotions. We don't get taught. So they become these parts of us that suddenly explode. We suddenly get triggered. They suddenly come out at our worst times. And we just then, and then it adds to the guilt. It adds to the, oh God, I can't believe I acted that way. I can't believe I did that. If we're never taught how to handle these emotions and how to handle and process these emotions, we just continue to act out this cycle, and we become a slave to low impulse control. And what I'm going to get into in this video is how children are punished, because when you're a child, when I was a child and I would mess up, I would do something crazy like draw on all the walls. I remember drawing on all the walls in my house. My caregivers were they punished me. They were very hard to me. So what did I internalize? I'm bad. That's essentially how we deal with it. We get punished. And this can have very bad effects on children. It doesn't teach impulse control. So we don't get taught how to handle and why we did these things. We just get punished. That doesn't stop, that doesn't help impulse control. That doesn't increase impulse control. That just internalizes the message that we are somehow inherently bad. When we have a lot of energy as young boys, we are just punished and shamed for having this energy. As children, we don't have any impulse control. So probably when you were younger, you may have been punished in certain ways. Just punished, just told. I've heard so many crazy stories about this, like being locked in a room for like 5 hours, duct taped to a chair because they were just so rambunctious, they were so hyperactive. Or then now we have, doctors prescribing medication to children to calm them down rather than teaching them how to be calm. And then the internal way of the child internalizes this is to punish itself. It learns that punishment is the only way because it got punished. So it believes that that's the best way to handle these emotions and deal with themselves. We then self-punish. Will be a common internal dialogue. You are so messy. You always mess up. Shame yourself, verbally attack yourself. What's important to understand is shaming and punishing a child doesn't teach a child impulse control. It just teaches them how to self-attack for being bad. So if you were punished when you were a child by being yelled at, by being hit, by being abused, you will internalize that as you are bad. So therefore you were just never ever taught impulse control. You were taught that you were bad. That's the difference. It's not teaching you how to regulate the impulse. It's not teaching you how to handle the internal intensity. This intensity then transforms into, I shouldn't be feeling this. The psyche will then do whatever it can to make sure that you don't have these feelings again. The response will be, I need to beat myself up, be hard on myself, punish myself. I am feeling bad equals I am bad. Then as we develop, we just reinforce this coping behavior. So a lot of that may sound familiar. So then the big question is, how do we develop a deeper quality of impulse control? So the first thing I want to say is that this takes time. Okay, this takes time. This is something I've been working on for so long, and you have to systematically break this down. There's many ways to deal with this. I'm going to go into that in this video, but it takes effort, it takes trial and error essentially, and it's not a one fixed solution. But there is hope, there is good news. You can train yourself to get better. So obviously there are things like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or meditational practices that really help. But what worked for me, I had to train myself in delayed gratification. Let's use one of my comforts as an example: binge eating at 11 o'clock, carbs, overeating bread of some kinds, some kind of snack until I was extremely full. This was literally just to feel something inside that I didn't want to feel. I had to train myself to go without. I would skip a day of overeating and miss a meal occasionally. I started small and built up like training a muscle. I would make it simple. Tonight after work, when 8 p.m. comes, and whatever I'm feeling, whatever I don't want to feel, I will skip the binge for just one night. Can I just avoid it today? So I would just train myself. When that feeling came, I would just be like, not today, okay? Just not today. You can have it in the future. I would trick my brain. I would tell myself, yep, okay, but today we're just not going to do that. We're not going to binge eat on 3 pizzas or whatever I was doing. I was really comfort eating. And to look at me, you wouldn't think that, but I think I must have a very high metabolism. But so I understood that if I just got through that 24 hours, I knew that I was training myself in delayed gratification. Delaying gratification has to be a focus, has to be something that you work at. It takes time. But it's very effective, and it does take a little bit of tenacity and patience with yourself. Another thing is you have to have the hope and the faith that your brain will start to adjust. In the same way that you have developed this habit, you can undevelop it, or you can train yourself not to have that urge. It will get easier, it will get less, but you have to go against it. You have to hold on for a couple of hours. Just go down. If you get an urge to, I don't know, watch porn or go drink a coffee or go drink a beer, and you've committed to delaying gratification like we're doing in this video, I promise you, just go and sit and take some breaths and say to yourself, we're not doing this today. 24 hours, we're just not going to go today. Just today, okay? Just today. We can do it tomorrow. And that seems to work. So make delayed gratification into a focus. Maybe you get a smoothie after the gym. And you have to just say to yourself, okay, I'm just not going to do that anymore. Start with something that you can control and then build outwards. Because if you have a lack of impulse control in one thing, it's probably going to bleed into everything else. So just focus on one thing and you'll start to notice that it changes everything. 2, ask yourself this powerful question: what am I feeling right now that I'm trying to avoid? If you do lose the battle, you can also look back, ask retrospectively, what was I feeling that I didn't want to feel? Normally, what we are trying to escape here is what we need to deal with the most. Need to deal with our loneliness, grief, boredom, anxiety, anger. So this is going to help you come in contact with some very strong emotions, and you have to dig deep to see what it is, what's down there. Whatever it is down there that you're trying to avoid, it's in these moments that will signify what you need to work on. Let's say you're doing inner work. I promise you that if you dig a little deep and you start to release the charge, release the sting of whatever it is, like the boredom or the anger or the sadness, just sitting with it is so powerful, and it will start to lower that need to distract yourself, just sitting with it. But you have to make this a focus. You will start to notice that you can begin to regulate your internal state by just being with it, by not resisting it. And like I said, because you've never been taught, you've never been given these tools, these are the tools. So ask yourself, like I said, one more time, what am I feeling right now that I'm trying to avoid? Take your time with this. Be patient with yourself. Notice what comes up. And if you do have an internal critic that is really hard on you because you are finding this very difficult, also that can work in tandem. So you start to notice that when you are hard on yourself, that's the internal critic, and there is a way of dealing with that that's also very powerful. So click on this video here that deals with the internal critic, like and subscribe to the video, and comment and share this with somebody that you think has low impulse control and actually could do with a video like this. Hope that helps, guys. See you later. Peace.